In today's chapter, I'm going to talk about rules and officiating. And I have my friend, my guest, Kyle, here with me today to educate us about the game. And thank you, Kyle, for being here today.
Glad to be here.
My first question is for you, Kyle. As I'm someone who watches a lot of sports, and as I start watching football, it seems like football is very, very complicated to me.
Yeah.
Can you help me and my audience understand the rules of the game?
Well, don't feel bad in thinking that football is a very complicated game. I've been watching, playing, reading about, talking about football for 30 plus years. And I wrote down some notes today because there are a lot of rules in football. It makes it hard to understand what's going on. The play is in progress, and all of a sudden there's an official throwing a yellow flag out onto the field, blowing their whistle, stopping the play, or before the play even starts, the referee or one of the officials is throwing their flag, blowing their whistle, stopping the play. Sometimes the officials throw multiple flags on the field. Multiple officials blow their whistles. Then they all have to come together and talk for what feels like forever to decide what the penalty on the field was. So I can completely understand that observing the game can feel complicated because of all the rules involved. But hopefully today we can talk about some of the rules, add some clarity so that when you're watching the game, you'll understand why those penalties occurred, what the infraction costs the team, and then ultimately which official makes that determination, which official makes that call. So yeah, a lot of rules. Anywhere in particular you want to start?
I've seen 15 yards penalty. I've seen 10 yards, 5 yards, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a defensive, sometimes it's offensive, and some of them I understand, but I know the majority of them it's when they call it. Okay, so why they call it?
Yeah.
I don't really understand it.
Yeah, and I would break rules down into rules that apply before the play starts, and then rules that apply for after the play starts or while the play is happening. So before the play starts, there are rules in place. A play starts when the offensive center snaps the ball, meaning the play starts when the offense first moves the ball. Before that happens, there are some things that have to occur. There is a line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage represents how far down the field the offense has moved the ball, the position on the field that the play will start from. That's the line of scrimmage. Offense on one side of that line of scrimmage, defense on the other side of that line of scrimmage. There is what's called the neutral zone. There is a small gap that represents the line of scrimmage all the way across the field. And no offensive or defensive player can be lined up in that neutral zone. So you can't have an offensive and defensive player touching each other, right, before the play has started. There has to be a separation between those players. If an offensive player is lined up on the defensive side of the line of scrimmage, that's known as offsides. If a defensive player is lined up on the offensive side of that line of scrimmage, that is also offsides. So it can be called on the defense or on the offense. That is a 5-yard penalty.
Okay.
If the offense commits that penalty, the ball moves back 5 yards and you start a new play. If the penalty occurs on the defense lines up offsides, it's a 5-yard penalty, but the ball is moved forward from the offense's perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
Then on offense, your players have to remain still for a moment. No offensive player can be moving forward at the snap of the ball. So at the time that the play starts, every offensive player has to remain still. They can't be moving forward. Now, there is one exception. The offense can have one player moving horizontally to the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped, when the play starts. You can only have one player in motion, and you can have multiple players moving before the ball is snapped. But when the ball is snapped, all of the offensive players have to come to a stop, except you may have one player running horizontal to the line of scrimmage. If the offense is not set when the play starts, meaning those players have not stopped moving, it's called a false start. So a lot of times what you'll see is the players come to rest, they pause before the play starts, but one player moves early. That's the most common way that you'll see a false start. There's all kinds of reasons that it could happen, but for one reason or another, an offensive player was moving when the ball was snapped or prior to the ball being snapped. The defense, on the other hand, they can move around. They can be moving when the ball is snapped. They can be moving side to side. More than one player can be moving. The defense has more freedom of move. So we talked about offside, meaning the players have to be across the line of scrimmage on their own side of the line of scrimmage when the play starts. And then a false start occurs when one of the offensive players moves before the ball is snapped or moves forward as the ball is being snapped, or there are more than one players in motion at the start of the play. A false start is penalized 10 yards. So if the offense commits a false start, the ball is going to be moved back 10 yards. The offense then restarts play from there. In addition to coming to rest before the play starts, the offense has to line up in a legal formation. So they have to have 7 players on the line of scrimmage, meaning they have to have 7 players lined up on that horizontal line of scrimmage that goes all the way across the field. It can be your offensive linemen, your wide receivers, whoever. We have to have 7 players on the line of scrimmage. If there are too many players behind the line of scrimmage or not enough on the line of scrimmage, that's called an illegal formation. It's going to be a 5-yard penalty. The offense has to move back 5 yards and restart their play. You can have 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. You can have 9 on the line of scrimmage. You just have to have at least 7 on the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
Defense doesn't matter. They can have one. They don't have to have any players on the line of scrimmage, but they can have as many as they want to.
Got it.
There's a play clock that counts each play. College and the NFL have different rules for the way the play clock is run, but for now, we just need to know that there is a clock. There is an amount of time that you have between one play ending and the next play starting. If the offense fails to start their play before that clock runs out of time, it's called a delay of game penalty. Mm-hmm. The offense has to move the ball back 5 yards and restart the play. So those are the penalties that can occur before the play starts. You talked about how complicated it is, but before the play even starts, we've got 4 or 5 different penalties that occur, and that can be somewhat confusing. Yeah. I get it. And then once the play starts, there's all kinds of different things that can happen. There are some penalties that are up to the judgment of the officials on the field. And there are some that are not really subjective. They happen, and that's a penalty. There's no opinion involved in that. So the most common penalty you're going to see on offense is called holding. The offense has offensive linemen. We don't need to get into each one, but their jobs are predominantly to block. So their job is to move the defensive players out of the way or prevent them from getting to the ball carrier, whoever has the ball. There are rules regulating how the offensive players can block. They cannot use their hands to grab a defender and move them. They have to use their bodies and their hands to move the defensive player, but they can't grab them.
Mhm.
They can't tackle them to the ground. They have to block. They have to get in the way of the defensive player. They can drive them, so they can put their hands on them and push them out of the way, but they can't grab them with their hands. That's called holding. So if a hold occurs, it is a 10-yard penalty, and then the play starts over. The offense has to move back 10 yards from the original line of scrimmage and start another play. The most common defensive penalty is pass interference.
Okay. Mhm.
So when the offense is trying to throw the ball to move it downfield, the defenders have rules that regulate the way they can try and prevent the offensive player from catching the ball. So they can't use their hands to push the wide receiver out of the direction they're running. They can't grab the defensive player and hold them back. They can't grab their jersey. They can't grab their hands. Much like an offensive lineman has to use his body to block the defender has to use their body to get in between the offensive player that's going to be catching the ball and the ball itself to try and break up the pass. So pass interference, if a pass interference occurs in the NFL, it's a spot foul. So wherever that penalty occurred is where the offensive play will start on the next play. In college, it's a spot foul up to 15 yards. So if the penalty occurs within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, the play will resume at 5 yards forward. And if the penalty occurs beyond 15 yards in college football, they're going to be awarded 15 yards, and they'll get a new set of downs, a first down. Any penalty can be accepted or declined by the team that would benefit from the penalty. So just because a penalty occurs doesn't mean that the other team has to accept the penalty. A good example of this would be if a defender jumps off sides, right? So before the play starts, a defender lines up in the neutral zone or comes across the line of scrimmage before the play starts. The play starts, the offense is able to move the ball more than 5 yards. They would elect to decline the penalty because their play resulted in more yards than the penalty would award them. That's not to say that's going to be the case in every scenario, but that's an example of why a penalty wouldn't be accepted. There are other penalties that get into very specific parts of play. Some other ones, though, that I would point out is a face mask. So on defense, you can't tackle the offensive player by their face mask. It's very dangerous. So the rules are in place to prevent the defender from grabbing an offensive player's face mask to tackle them. That's a 15-yard penalty. So it's a big penalty. There are a lot of rules in place to protect the quarterback, right? It's the most important position on the field. The league wants to protect quarterbacks. They're what
every cost.
Exactly. So there are penalties designed to protect the quarterback. So roughing the passer is one. So after the quarterback throws the ball, a defender that's not already in the motion of tackling the quarterback can't proceed with tackling the quarterback. He's already thrown the ball. He is a defenseless player in that scenario, so you can't hit the quarterback. Can't tackle the quarterback low, right? You can't take him out at the knees. You can't tackle them low. Can't hit him in the head either. You basically can't touch a quarterback unless he's got the ball in his hands. A lot of rules designed to protect the quarterback. The roughing the passer penalty awards the offense 15 yards and a first down. So big penalty. Don't want to do that. The penalties that we've talked about are really sort of normal penalties that happen. They're not intentional penalties, offside, holding, pass interference. these aren't instances where a player is trying to intentionally injure another player, but there are penalties for instances where that happens. So unnecessary roughness is a penalty. It's a 15-yard penalty. This can occur on an offensive player or a defensive player. If a player intentionally hurts a player, meaning they hit them after the whistle, right? After the play ends, that can be a late hit. That's unnecessary roughness. A play ends when a ball carrier is taken out of bounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that a defensive player continues the play and hits that ball carrier out of bounds intentionally. It's a late hit. They don't make an effort to avoid hitting that other player. That's it. That can be a penalty as well. That can be considered unnecessary roughness.
Is that 15 or 10 yards?
That one's 15 yards.
15.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. So this one used to get more players in trouble than it does now, but things like taunting, celebrating a score. Now in the NFL, players score and they can choreograph an entire dance if they want to, and they do. And it can be an entertaining part of the game. In college football, there are a lot of restrictions on just how much celebrating you can do. Taunting, right? So there's a big hit. A defender hits an offensive player and then gets up over them and taunts them somehow. That can be a penalty as well. That's unsportsmanlike conduct. There have been players that have thrown punches at each other. That is unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes unsportsmanlike conduct happens against both an offensive player and a defensive player at the same time. Those penalties offset. Those are all 15 yards. College has a unique penalty called targeting, where if a defenseless player, a player that can't defend themselves, that can't try and avoid a hit, is targeted in the head or neck area with really any part of the other player's body, that's a 15-yard penalty. So this is a rule that was implemented to try and make the game safer. And it's done a great job of doing that. But it can be a controversial play as well, because if targeting is called, it's a 15-yard penalty, and the player that did the targeting is ejected from the game. If it occurs in the second half of the game, they miss the rest of the second half, and they have to
Suspended.
they're suspended for the first half of the next game as well. And it's a judgment call. There's no black and white, clear cut instance where a player hits another player in the head and neck area who is defenseless. So it's a play that is reviewed, where the officials will go and review footage of the hit and then determine if it was in fact targeting, if they're going to call targeting or not. So that's one that can be reviewed, and it's a very serious penalty. It's designed for player safety, and if it occurs, it's very impactful to the player that did it.
Okay. One play that I want to mention to explain that to me is the play where if the offensive player fumbled the ball in the end zone, and not sure what happened, but it seems like they got penalized for fumble the ball in the end zone. Can you explain that?
So if I'm on offense and I am going in to score and I fumble the ball and it goes out of bounds, it's a penalty. The other team is going to get the ball. I can't fumble the ball forward. So if that occurs and the ball goes out of bounds in the end zone, the defensive team is going to get the ball.
Okay.
I don't know of it being a penalty, but it would be the defense's ball.
Ball at
If
that
I
time.
fumble it into the end zone and it goes out of bounds, or if I fumble it into the end zone and the defense recovers it, it's their ball.
Okay. What are some of the most important rules a fan should understand, should know, just to at least understand the basic of the games?
Yeah. The first ones I would understand is offside and false start. You're going to see those penalties most often, and they are it's kind of confusing. If you don't know, nothing's even happened yet, and they're throwing a flag. The play hasn't even started. How can there be a penalty?
Penalties. Okay.
And then offensive holding and pass interference. Those are the most common penalties you're going to see while the play is happening. And you don't always even see it. You don't see it happen. And they're subject to the official's call. You can't review those. There's no way to overturn it. And the general thought is an official could call holding on every play, any play they could call holding to. And it is very frustrating for fans. You may hear the crowd getting upset. You'll hear the crowd booing and you're wondering, why are they booing? Well, sometimes the crowd sees a hold and the referee, the umpire doesn't see it and they don't throw a flag. There could be times where an official throws the flag for holding, and it's one of those where, yeah, you could have called that on any play throughout the entire game, but you haven't been calling that, and all of a sudden you decided to throw a flag for that. So they're subjective. They're up to the official's opinion as to whether or not there was a penalty that occurred at that point in the play. Now there's pass interference. It is a very subjective penalty, and the officiating crew may decide to let contact occur between an offensive player and a defensive player during a pass, right? They may be all game letting them be physical with each other. And then all of a sudden they change their mind, or it's a big moment in the game. It's close to the end of the game. The score is close, and an official throws a flag, calls a penalty that drastically changes the outcome of the game, or doesn't call a penalty that they've been calling the entire game. So those are the penalties that I would be most familiar with to really enjoy the game and understand what's happening. The rest of the penalties, hitting players too hard, the personal fouls, penalties that dictate the way an offensive lineman can block, other penalties that happen during the course of play. Those are they're going to happen, but the average football fan doesn't really know why the penalty's being called.
Okay.
There are a lot of instances where penalties are called that are rare, I should say.
Okay. Now that you talked about the officials, how many of them are there on the field, and what are their roles?
Yeah. The officials on the field, not something that even the average fan knows what the types of officials are, where they should be on the field, and what their jobs are. The referee is the head official. They're the ones that all of the other officials report their penalties to. The referee helps sort out which penalties should be called, if there are multiple penalties, how those impact the other penalties, how it impacts the course of the play. The umpire is the official that is charged with calling penalties at the line of scrimmage. So we talked about false start, right? We talked about lining up in the neutral zone, jumping off sides, right? Those are penalties that the umpire is going to look for. The line judge determines where the line of scrimmage is and where the down marker should be. So as the offense tries to move the ball down the field, they're trying to progress across the field. The line judge determines how far the offense moved the ball. They're going to line up. They're going to always remain on one side of the field, one sideline. The down judge assists with making sure the chains move. So your 10-yard measuring chain, if the offense gets a first down, if they move beyond the 10-yard marker, they are going to move the chains down the field. They are also going to make sure that from play to play, they are advancing the down, meaning if the offense runs their first play on first down, they're going to make sure that the down is updated for the next play to show it's second down. They always remain on one side of the field. The line judge, their responsibility is to track the line of scrimmage. How far down the field did the offense move the ball? The very tip of the front of the ball determines how far the offense moved the ball and creates the next line of scrimmage for the next play. So the line judge determines the line of scrimmage, then also on their sideline, on their side of the field, advances the down marker on every play as well. The field judge lines up in the defensive backfield. They are there to monitor and record penalties on kicks, so on punts, on kickoffs. They're watching for where did the ball carrier or receiver of the kick receive the kick, because that's where the play starts there. They're also going to judge pass interference on deep passes. So they are always going to stay back behind the deepest wide receiver or the deepest defensive back and make sure that the defensive backs and the wide receivers are not committing pass interference. They also, because they're lined up in the back of the defense, can see the play clock that's running usually behind the field goal post at the opposite side of the field. So they are going to help call penalties for delay of game. So if the offense doesn't get the play started before the play clock reaches 0, the field judge throws the flag to signal a delay of game. Side judge determines whether or not the player stepped out of bounds on offense. So if they're carrying the ball and they step on the sideline, plays over. So the side judge helps to make sure that they stop play when an offensive player goes out of bounds. And the back judge is lined up in the back of the defense, opposite side of the field judge. Their job is to also officiate deep passes, make sure that there's no pass interference occurring, and then also help maintain the clock, make sure that clock starts when the play is supposed to, and make sure that there's no delay of game occurring. So a lot of different officials. They're not perfect, but each one of them has a specific job to do on the field to make sure that the plays are occurring when and where they're supposed to, and that all the rules are being followed.
And you had mentioned earlier that some plays can be reviewed. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there are certain plays that can be reviewed for accuracy. So things like holding, pass interference, personal fouls, those can't be reviewed. Once they are called, they're called. There's no taking it back. There are procedural things that can be reviewed. So let's say it's close to the 10-yard marker, right? And what I mean by that is the offensive player carries the ball close to the first down marker. They almost get to the 10-yard spot. And it's a very close call. That play can be reviewed. So the officials would be required to go to a TV set that's on the side of the field and review the play to see, did the line judge and the down judge get the correct spot on the ball? So they might have actually called the runner down before they actually did get down, or they could have called it, the player could have actually been tackled shorter than they gave him credit for moving. This happens a lot with tackles close to the end zone. The ball has to just get over the very front edge of the end zone to score. And a lot of times there's a big pile of players right there. And in real time, it's hard to tell exactly where the ball carrier was tackled. So they can review that play. Sometimes a coach can challenge the play. They only get so many challenges per game. And if they're wrong, they don't get to call any more challenges. The head official for NFL games, every game is being watched remotely. And they can buzz down to the field. They can basically signal down to the officials, hey, we need to review this play. It looks like maybe you got it wrong. So then they go and review it. And either the play is overturned, meaning the call in the field was wrong, or the play was upheld. What they reviewed showed what they had called. So the distance or where the ball carrier is tackled can be reviewed. Another one is a catch. And this drives football fans crazy. How do you know if a player caught the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the NFL, the ball carrier has to secure the ball before they go to the ground, meaning the ball can't be caught against the ground. The receiver also has to catch the ball in bounds, which sounds very simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in bounds. They caught the ball. Well, they're such skilled athletes that they can just get the very tips of their toes down in bounds and as they're falling out of bounds and catch the ball. So they have to, in the NFL, they have to have 2 feet in bounds when they catch the ball. They also have to secure the ball all the way to the ground. So if they hit the ground and the ball comes loose, it wasn't a catch, even if their hands touched the ball while both of their feet were in bounds. And it's one that gets called on the field one way, and then they go and review it, and it's still not always called accurately. So those are 2 of the plays that can be reviewed. Again, holding, offsides, false start, personal fouls. Those aren't reviewable, but procedural things during the course of play, those can be reviewed and either upheld or overturned.
Thank you, Kyle, for your knowledge. I appreciate your insight of the game. Thank you for watching, and hit that notification and subscribe.